Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a bit of a turn. We're shifting gears from maybe the purely empirical, the strictly scientific, and diving into, well, a really rich area of esoteric thought.
Hmm.
We're going to unpack some fascinating material today. It's focused on this pretty radical idea, actually, that maybe humanity is, I guess, due for a kind of monumental internal upgrade. The specific source we're exploring is titled Starseeds and the Homo Galacticus Awakening. So our mission here is to really navigate this concept, this idea that we as humans might be, well, something more than just the standard definition of Homo sapiens. It's looking into cosmic origins, spiritual evolution, and potentially a whole shift in how we see ourselves. We really want to get into what this material claims science, maybe, forgot to tell us.
It's definitely an intriguing premise
Yeah.
because the writers here, they aren't just like adding a spiritual layer onto evolution. They're suggesting our whole conventional picture is incomplete. The core idea really is that this critical piece, our galactic DNA, our cosmic memory, has either been suppressed or maybe just overlooked by, mainstream science. It fundamentally asks you to consider an origin story that goes way, way beyond just Earth.
Okay, let's tackle that core term straight away because it feels central. Starseeds. Who or what are starseeds according to this philosophy?
Right, so they're defined pretty clearly in the material as souls that chose to come here from other systems.
Mm.
So it's not just about feeling a bit different or like an outsider. It's framed as a conscious choice, an act of incarnation, almost like volunteering for a really complex assignment here on Earth.
That's interesting. Usually you think about wanting to get away from complex assignments or escaping difficult situations, but this perspective seems to flip that. Why are these souls supposedly here?
Yeah, the material's very explicit on this point. They are here, and I'm quoting loosely, not to escape Earth, but to help awaken it.
Mm.
And that's a really key distinction, I think. It gives this identity of purpose, a mission, to contribute to some kind of planetary shift, maybe raising the collective, what the source calls frequency, not just checking out from the challenges.
Okay, frequency. When the material uses that word, we're not talking about radio waves or sound, are we? It's more like an inner state.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not literal hertz. When they talk about high vibrational intent or frequency, it seems to mean a state of being, like emotional and spiritual clarity,
Right.
operating from a place of love, unity, maybe abundance, as opposed to what they might call lower frequencies, fear, competition, scarcity, the things that often define that basic survival mode.
Ah, okay. And this leads into how the concept tries to explain that feeling of existential yearning, right? The starseed idea is put forward as the reason why maybe you sometimes feel not from here, or why, all the human chaos seems baffling, or why looking at the night sky feels like, well, the stars feel like home.
Right. It sort of turns that feeling of being an outsider, which can be quite alienating for people.
Yeah,
And it turns it into potential evidence of this higher mission or this different origin. It recontextualizes that discomfort. It's not a flaw in you, perhaps, but a kind of echo, a memory of where you came from. So if you feel inherently confused by, say, the constant struggle for survival, the material suggests is because your soul might be operating on a different,
Right.
maybe more advanced set of assumptions.
That's a powerful reframing. So if that's the idea behind the presence here, let's talk about the origin. The cosmic lineage. This is where it gets quite specific, right? Pointing to actual stars. What specific star systems does the research mention as possible origins for this galactic DNA?
The ones that come up most consistently in this material are Sirius, Lyra, and the Pleiades. And, for listeners maybe not familiar with this kind of esoteric literature, these aren't just random picks from an astronomy chart.
Right. Give us a little context on why those specific systems.
Well, traditionally, within these kinds of narratives, each system often represents a different kind of energy or contribution to Earth's development. So Sirius is often linked with, ancient knowledge, high spiritual wisdom, maybe the master teachers. Lyra is sometimes seen as connected to the very ancestral roots of humanity, maybe original human forms. And the Pleiades are frequently associated with things like artistry, beauty, harmony, even practical community building.
Okay, so following that logic, the idea isn't just that we have Earth DNA, but that we might also be carrying fragments of galactic memory or energetic blueprints from these specific, maybe highly evolved stellar points of origin. It suggests our past is much more complex than just one planetary line.
That's basically the synthesis, yeah. It paints a picture of our ancestry as not just anthropological, but cosmic. In this view, humanity isn't one single thing, but more like a galactic melting pot, carrying these different imprints, these different intelligences or frequencies from ancient stellar homes. And when they say DNA, it might not always mean the physical double helix we study in biology. It could also refer to an energetic blueprint, like the soul's pattern, which sort of helps bridge the esoteric with something a bit more tangible.
This is where the material really draws a line in the sand, I think. It sets up these two distinct archetypes, Homo sapiens versus Homo galacticus. This contrast feels pretty central, so let's spend some time on it. How do they operate differently?
Yeah, it's presented as a fundamental difference in their core operating system, if you like. Homo sapiens is described as running on an older system. It's stable, perhaps, but limited. It's designed for resource management, safety, survival above all else. So the focus is fighting for survival. And this manifests as competition, fear, maybe rigid structures, always reacting to perceived external threats. You see echoes of this in, well, a lot of human history and current events, conflict, scarcity, borders.
That definitely sounds like the story we often tell ourselves about history, constant struggle, limited resources.
Exactly. But Homo galacticus, according to the source, operates on a different system entirely, an advanced, maybe more unified one. They're described as being post-survival. Their existence is defined more by connection and by that word again, frequency. They're concerned with inner resonance, co-creation, unity consciousness. Think of it maybe like this. Sapiens asks, how do I protect my slice of the pie? And Galacticus asks, how can we bake more pies, enough for everyone?
That's a great analogy, actually. It lands really well. So if Galacticus is focused on connection, how does that translate into practical behavior? Like, how would they approach common human conflicts or disagreements?
Well, the material suggests that if a sapiens-type consciousness sees conflict, the instinct might be to retreat or attack, because the underlying belief is scarcity resources are limited. Opponents must be dealt with. But if a Galacticus-type consciousness encounters conflict, they might see it differently, maybe as a misalignment of frequency, an opportunity to understand the underlying fear or need and to connect. They operate supposedly from this deeper knowing that external chaos can't really touch their core infinite nature. Their role might be simply to hold a higher frequency, to offer a different possibility.
And the ultimate goal of this awakening, this potential leap from sapiens to Galacticus, what's the core realization the material wants the listener to have?
The absolute core reflection seems to be the realization that you are an infinite being having a human ride. That's the pivot.
Yeah.
It means this physical body, this life with all its challenges, it's temporary. It's a vehicle, a chosen experience, maybe even a learning ground. But the true self, the core consciousness, is unbounded, eternal. It completely reframes life on Earth. It shifts from being a struggle you have to win to maybe an adventure you chose when you're here to experience and perhaps positively influence.
That reframing is, it's genuinely powerful. Now, the material then introduces something you flagged as really critical, this surprising thought, or maybe like a glitch in the system. Something that makes this transition feel immediate, not some far-off sci-fi event.
Absolutely. And this glitch, as you call it, is what grounds the whole philosophy, I think. It stops it from just floating off into pure fantasy. It states very clearly, you don't need a spaceship to be galactic.
Huh. Okay, so no waiting lists, no special applications needed.
None at all.
Yeah.
It really emphasizes that this awakening is internal. It happens within you, right now, not dependent on some external event or arrival. The material insists things like, you are already walking stardust and the cosmos breathes in your blood. And, that's not just poetry. There's a scientific angle there, too. The elements that make up our bodies, the carbon, the oxygen, the iron, they were literally forged inside stars billions of years ago.
Right. We are literally made of star stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the connection is physical, tangible, as well as potentially spiritual or energetic. You are built from the cosmos.
Okay, that provides a huge sense of, immediate potential, doesn't it? If we're already stardust, already equipped, how do we activate this memory? How do we start operating like Homo Galacticus? The material gives a kind of simple star map, right? 3 actionable steps anyone can take to kickstart this remembering. Let's break those down.
Yeah, these are presented as ways to sort of recalibrate your focus, shifting away from that default sapien survival programming and tuning into the Galacticus frequency. The first step is really simple. It's a mix of meditated action and clear intention. Look up at the night sky consciously and just say, I remember. It's about signaling internally to your deeper self that the time of forgetting, the amnesia, is ending. You're choosing to remember.
Okay, simple but potent. The second step sounds more like an internal compass. Follow the call of what excites you, that feeling of excitement or passion or deep joy that's defined as your personal star map.
Yes, exactly. This connects your passion directly to your purpose. According to this philosophy, your highest excitement isn't just a hobby or a distraction. It's actually the guiding system from your own galactic self, showing you the vibrational path you intended to walk while here on Earth. So if you feel lost, the material suggests the answer is always found in what genuinely lights you up, what ignites your spirit.
That's a really empowering way to think about passion. And the third step, this one seems to address the social challenges of making the shift. Speak your truth even if Homo sapiens doesn't get it.
Right. This step acknowledges the maybe inevitable friction that can happen when you start operating from a higher frequency in a world that's still largely running on that older survival mode. And this is often the hardest part, isn't it? For anyone making a big internal shift, it takes real courage. Because operating as Homo Galacticus in this framework means letting go of needing validation from people who are still stuck in that scarcity paradigm.
Hmm.
When you stop worrying about judgment and just speak your authentic truth, yeah, it might create some friction, but the source suggests that friction is necessary, like clearing static, to make way for others too. It's about choosing authenticity over the comfort of just fitting in.
Choosing the vibration of truth over the perceived safety of conformity. Wow. Okay, this has been a high frequency deep dive into a pretty radical perspective on human potential. So, to kind of recap the core takeaway here, the message seems profound. You're not necessarily here just to fit in. You might be here to remember who you've always been. Someone potentially far more vast, more connected, maybe more powerful than the conventional story of humanity allows. More than human, perhaps. Homo Galacticus.
And maybe we can leave listeners with the mantra that the material provides, which really sums up the foundation for this shift. I am more than Earth remembers. That's presented as the internal declaration, the claim that starts to activate this whole awakening process. So building on that and on those action steps, if your passion truly is your personal star map, your guide to why you're here, and you know that speaking your truth is part of aligning with that, what single, maybe even tiny, immediate action could you take this week to actually follow the call of what excites you, even if it feels a bit scary, even if others might not get it? Just one step into remembering who you are. What would that step be? That decision, the source suggests, that's where the awakening truly begins.